Hey everyone, welcome to our channel. I'm Aline.
And I'm Dave.
And we are the parents to two little boys, Leon, who's 7, and Roman, who's 5 years old. Leon's an awesome big brother to his little brother, Roman. And Roman is the happiest kid we know.
So happy.
And he happens to be autistic. And I happen to work in the field of special education. So we are going to spend a little bit of time talking about Roman's autism journey and how our family was impacted and is impacted by his diagnosis and how we've changed since then. But ultimately, we don't plan on this channel being like an autism family vlog or anything like that. But since he is autistic, there will be times where it does come up. So yeah, I work in the field of disabilities. I'm a special ed teacher. So I've been in this field for almost 20 years, although I've been teaching this is my 11th year teaching, but I worked with kids who were autistic for years before. So yeah, this is going to come up a lot, I'm sure. And I love being helpful to other parents, especially those who are just starting their journeys, because I'm just a few years ahead of you. But so I love helping parents about autism and other disabilities and just, how to be helpful to your child. So again, we'll see how much autism comes up. So we will actually be starting this vlog up by talking a little bit about Roman because I think that people are going to notice some of his social and communication differences, and I'd rather just kind of get it out of the way and talk about him and get it all out of the way before we get started. So Roman was born at the end of 2019, and he was only 6 months old when the world shut down. I was set to go back to work that year, but on April 1st, 2020, that's when I was set to go back to work. That was literally the same day that the world shut down, and I did not make it back to the physical classroom until things were, kind of back to normal was it like a year later, 6 months later? I don't really remember, but I know I got to spend more time with him. So that was a significant time for everyone because everybody was locked down. We were in our homes for way longer than we would have ever been. The CDC had changed the milestones for speech, for development and whatever else, and so it was really difficult for parents to evaluate and assess if their child had a disability or if it was just the pandemic impacting development. So it was really hard for anybody to get any kind of referral, and even then, if you did get a referral, everything was on Zoom. So it was just a really not great time, I think. Different. We can use the word different. So, but at what point, honey, would you say that you noticed that Roman wasn't meeting his developmental milestones? When would you say you felt like you were concerned?
I mean, because Leon had a speech delay, I didn't.
Not officially. According to his pediatrician, he wasn't delayed because he was
slight. Okay. It felt like it was a little bit delayed. I didn't think anything of Roman's speech delay. I just figured it was a genetic thing where we talk late.
Oh, because you also have an uncle who spoke late.
Correct.
My mom has had a cousin who didn't speak till she was 5. I think your uncle was 3 or 4, something like that.
3.5. So I didn't believe he had autism for a while. To me, he was normal, albeit a little more spacey. But later, I accepted that he had autism, and after much more time with him, I began understanding the disorder more, and I do believe his autism, in my opinion, is fairly mild.
I have a different view on his autism. I would not say it's mild. I would say it's more moderate. And with ADHD on top of that and apraxia of speech, I think that he seems like he's higher support needs, but cognitively average. So time will tell. But in terms of autism itself, I would say it's more moderate. And of course, autism is not linear. And so it's really hard to just be mild, moderate. Sorry, I hate to use the word severe because it's really, in the special ed world and in the autism world, it's more, I'm so sorry.
It reminds me of salsas, mild, medium, and hot.
Well, that's what the autism community says. So, but we're switching over to levels of support. So it could be level 1, which is less support. Level 2 is moderate support, and then like level 3 would be like higher support needs.
That sounds
So
better.
yes, but again, it's not linear. It's really like, I think the community says it's more like a pie chart, and so you have like these like different areas of need, and it's really hard to compare. It's like comparing an apple to an orange, even though you're looking at two autistic people. It's just very different. So I knew he had a speech delay before he turned 2. You know, COVID cases were up at the end of October 2021 when he was 2 years old. And I had brought up speech as like a concern. But again, his pediatrician was like, well, you know, COVID and he's a boy and, you know, all of the things that people say. So I didn't want to take him in the office because COVID cases were rising, and I waited a couple of months, 2-3 months, I don't remember, and you know, we did get that speech referral. And as I'm answering like their questionnaires for speech, I realized that some of them were autism screeners, and at first I was like, no, I don't see any of that. But then I want to say a little while later, like a month later, I started to actually like see characteristics of autism. And then like by the month of March, like I knew, like I'm like, oh yeah, he is autistic. So Dave, what autism traits did you recognize in Roman, if any?
Definitely his social skills or lack thereof. He didn't seem interested in direct play with other kids. He liked to play with by himself, but around others, in the vicinity of others. He also had very niche interests. He's really into ceiling fans or objects that spin, like fidget spinners. He loves those. And he's really into certain sounds and musics and hates other sounds and music. His limited speech, I believe, is his most hindering trait, though.
Yeah, there are other like sounds that he's sensitive to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He doesn't like the ice machine. He doesn't like the coffee machine.
Yeah, we have to put on
Earmuffs.
noise canceling headphones to just like help him cope. You know, if he doesn't have them, he'll just cover his ears. But yeah, he does have those like sound sensitivities. So for me at the time, like I noticed that Roman would lay down on his side and take like his little toy cars and like push them back and forth at eye level. And I think he was looking at the wheels, like, and he'd smile, and I knew that he was happy. And he still actually likes to do that. He still likes to lay on his side and look at things at eye level. So I know he's experiencing something completely different than what I do, but like that was one of the first signs where I looked over and I was like, oh my gosh, that's autism. He would do that outside too with like the scooter, the little toy cars that like babies sit on and push themselves on. And like Dave said, his limited speech, he liked to line up his toys. He never really did like the big lineups, although I think I have a picture of him like doing like a fairly like long one, but it's not something that he really does. Just
he did it like with the cars. Some of them had like little magnets that would connect, like, you know, trains, but you know,
not as long as some of like my friends' autistic kids. So like, but he did, at least to, you know, to some capacity he did. We would hear, so with his speech, we would hear him say a word one time and then I would never hear it again, which sometimes happens with autistic kids. He loved, and he still loves to like squint at objects. He loves to like look at them, and at every angle he squints at them. He like smiles funny. It's really cute. So he did that back then too. He would look out from the corner of his eyes a lot.
the side eye.
The side eye, yeah. And he would do that a lot while he'd be spinning. I don't really see him doing that very much anymore. Like he'll still spin, but he doesn't do the eye thing. And we have some videos of him doing these things. So maybe I'll make a little compilation video of some point just showing some of those things later on. Although there are already a lot of like early signs of autism videos out there. So I don't know if anybody wants to see it, but some of the earlier signs that we missed, like in infancy into like early toddlerhood, were that he would stand on his tippy toes a lot. Like in his little bouncer, he was always on his tippy toes. And then he started walking on his tippy toes. And he was like constantly chewing on things like the spine of like his books, and then the spinning around a lot. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. And like, luckily, he was a really good sleeper. I know a lot of parents report that.
Thank goodness.
Oh yeah, because we like to sleep in
We
this
like to
family.
sleep. And
Yeah,
he's really good.
yeah. So he's a good sleeper. He still is. Like, he'll get up and look at me, and I'll tell him to go back to sleep, and he'll plop right back down and sleep for like another hour. Um, so how did you cope with Roman's official diagnosis when we got it?
So I had more of a reaction when we spoke with the developmental pediatrician, and she said that she was sure that Roman had autism. I immediately started crying. I felt a little bit angry, I think. Yeah.
Why were you angry? Like what? Like what about that made you angry?
How dare you say that about my kid? I was thinking, like, how could you say that? Like, child's perfect.
Well, he is autistic or not. He's perfect.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it, back then my limited understanding was that.
Mhm.
So I had strong emotions, crying, a little bit of anger and frustration. I remember leaving and putting him in the car. It was just me and him, and as I'm walking to the car, I was crying. But like it was getting to acceptance.
Yeah.
Skipping the denial, getting to acceptance. Thankfully, I fully accepted him now, and we are trying to provide him with everything and all the resources that we can to help him in his future.
Yeah. I didn't do well either, but I knew that she was right. Like, we fought quite a bit over things before he was even like diagnosed. The hardest part for me was actually being in limbo. Like, I stopped taking care of myself because I was so stressed out. I was so anxious. I lost like 10 pounds in that first like month. And while Dave and I look like we're the same size, he's actually like almost a foot taller than I am. I'm quite a bit smaller than he is. So losing 10 pounds in in the span of 1 month it's a lot of weight for somebody my size. So yeah. It's also worth mentioning that the developmental pediatrician who diagnosed him gave him a level 2 diagnosis when I asked her at our final meeting what his level of autism was. And she said that he would be a level 1 if he ever talked. And if he didn't, that he would be a level 2. And she said that if he didn't speak by age 6, she said, don't expect him to talk, which we can talk about these things at a later time. But later on, when we got his report, since we had to ask for a formal report in order for us to be able to get him to get more services.
Yeah.
He was on a wait list for a year through Children's Hospital LA to be diagnosed. And I was like, I can't wait a year. He's 2.5. I can't wait till he's 3.5. Like, we need to get this done now. Like, I was really anxious, and I was really motivated to get his diagnosis. And so we opted to go the private diagnosis route. So, anyways, we asked for that report, and I'm reading the report, and she wrote that he's a level 2 to 3. And I was like, what do you mean level 2 to 3? You told me level 2. And so she and I had a back and forth about it. And I was like, I kind of spiraled a little bit because level 2 is pretty different than level 3 and all of that. So anyways, I do academic assessments. That's part of my job. And so I do believe in these assessments, these standardized tests. They are telling. And so I was like spiraling because I'm like, but he's so smart, and his receptive language is good, but his expressive isn't. And he's really distracted, and like, maybe we'll do another video about this later on to go more in depth, but I didn't really agree with her on it. So I was like pretty upset. And then she left some like information about like I'm assuming it was a kid prior, in her template, and she had inaccurate information about him. So I'm like, is she confusing some of that stuff about our kid with like the prior kid? Because she also wrote inaccurate things about Dave and about me, like about our jobs and things like that. So I know for sure she was pretty messy about it. And
she tried to get us to take the services of her verbal diagnosis and give us a discount for not having the written, but we said we needed the written to be able to get him services. essentially why we came to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it did seem like it was an afterthought,
Mm-hmm.
and that
it was more of a business
she didn't really
transaction.
know Roman.
Yeah.
So I didn't get as upset, like angry upset in a manner of like my son could be level 3, but I took it more as this. It was a business transaction, so
right.
That's why.
Right.
I'm like, whatever. She didn't care.
And in a school setting, we don't diagnose. Only a clinical psychologist or a developmental pediatrician can like diagnose autism. But like in the school setting, like when we do assessments, we're looking at everybody's findings before we talk about how much support a student needs. And so for me, I feel like this should be like a team diagnosis, and that's how they do it in Australia. I have family in Australia, and my cousin's doctor, a pediatrician, and he can actually he can diagnose autism. So he talked about how they do it in their country, and it's quite different than ours. So I'm kind of in disagreement about how kids are diagnosed anyway, but like that's a different conversation.
It is what it is.
Yeah. So how would you say Roman's diagnosis has changed you, or do you even feel like his diagnosis has changed you at all?
I mean, I feel like every experience in life changes you.
Yeah.
I feel like I've grown. I'm more wiser.
Wiser, yeah, more
Just
wiser.
I'm more aware of all the aspects of autism. I'm more aware of how to speak with Roman and to play with Roman. I make games and songs for him, which I forget the songs and he remembers them and repeats them when he looks at me and gives me that angelic smile. I understand his behavior more. I'm more patient with him, and I become more patient with others, which is really good for me and my mental health too. Though I do wish I knew a lot of this stuff when I was a little younger.
Yeah. It's changed me a lot. I think I used to be a lot more carefree. Like, I think I take things, at least with my child, a lot more seriously. His therapies have like really impacted and changed our entire family dynamic. Like our lives kind of revolve around all of his therapies and, the plans that we make and all of that. So in that aspect, like I'm a lot more serious. It's made me a lot more appreciative about life, and recognizing what's truly important in our lives. I have I have a couple of physical conditions. And so I've never taken like my health for granted, like in like being pain-free, like seeing people being able to live their lives every day without being in, chronic pain, which is, I have 2 conditions that are, linked to chronic pain. So I've never taken that for granted, but like especially with having a son who has a disability, like I'm even more, like so much more grateful. And I don't take mental health or, mind body connect like for granted. Roman tries to talk and it doesn't come out right, and like when I see other people's kids or my older kid being able to talk and like say what they want to say and being understood the first time and not being impaired by their disability or by a disability, like, gosh, it's amazing. So I don't take those things for granted. I worry more than I used to. We think about like future IEPs to come and things like that, but we can only take it one day at a time.
Yeah, I don't think about it.
He doesn't, because I'm the one who's worried about it. I'm the one worrying here.
And you're so good at it that
you're like, she's doing it. She's worrying for
me.
The weight
is off me because she's handling it so well. And I mean, I'm not saying I don't help with the weight because that would be a big burden for you. Mm-hmm. I'm here, always supportive, but you do a lot.
I do. It's because of my profession. I think that's why. So
it's also your personality.
It is my personality. I'm a type A.
Take control.
I am. I do. So I can also be, type B too. It just depends on the situation. So how do you feel like Roman is doing now? Since we're almost 3 years since his diagnosis,
I think he's doing great. I've seen him make improvements. Sometimes there's weeks where he's just like changes every day of the week, and my parents or your parents see him, or my parents mainly, because your parents see him every day. My parents see him on the weekends, so it's like one weekend to the next. They're like, how did he learn how to say this so well? How did he change his behavior of this so well? So he does a lot. He's improving a lot. He's still behind. We're very much aware, but I do feel like he's very smart, and I do see improvements all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that he's improved in all capacities, you know, definitely in the area of communication, but like you do have to kind of push him to do it. Because like I said, people will have lowered expectations of him and not expect him to speak in a sentence. And so if he gives a one-word answer, people accept it. But if you actually ask him to say more, he can and he will. You know, I think we're still working on his interactions with kids, and it may or may not come. So we'll see how that goes. But, you know, he's exceeded what my expectations were going to be of him to begin with, because I didn't know like how much support he would need. And so I thought kind of like worst case scenario that he would
she was glass half empty. I was trying to be optimistic and be glass half full. But yeah, he's improving. He's doing well.
Yeah, I think he's doing good. And I love seeing the gears in his head turning, and
I totally see his gears moving.
Yeah. And I work with kids his age. I actually teach a class that's exactly like the one that he's in. And the progress that I see from TK to kindergarten, and then from kindergarten to first grade, and then like once they're not with me anymore and they go to second grade, and I get to have an interaction with them, seeing those, like seeing the growth just in our like conversations, you know, I'm hopeful for him, and I think that, you know, he'll continue to make progress. So I'm happy about that.
Definitely.
Do you have any concerns for him at this time?
Specific concerns at this time? Not really. I'm a very go with the flow type of person, as I mentioned. I see him. I see that he's happy. He's eating. He doesn't give us too much problem with eating. He drinks water, so he's hydrated. Like the physical health stuff is there. He plays. He's very typical in that way, where he does all the, you know, the standard things that everyone else does. I do wish his communication skills were better and some of his social skills, but they're improving every day.
Yeah, but that is autism. It's a social communication disorder, difference, disability, you know, whatever you want that letter D to stand for. I know that there's a lot of kind of commotion in the autism community, so I am trying to be as supportive to that community as I can be, but I'm not always going to get it right, so I apologize. My concerns for Roman, I would say his like difficulty with focusing, like that ADHD part of him, and then everything that you said with his like social interactions, it's difficult. I don't think it's just autism that impacts him. I think it's ADHD that's also like impacting him. And then he also has childhood apraxia of speech, or apraxia for short. And he has, you know, difficulties with the motor movements of his tongue. Like he can't make certain sounds like the T sound or the D sound. So that impairs his ability to make the sounds that he's trying to say. And he knows when he's not being like understood. And he'll like, if I ask him to say it again, like a second time or a third time, and if he knows that I didn't understand him, he'll like sing a song to me to change the subject, or he'll say something like different. And it's like, it's so like heartbreaking, like, cause I should be able to understand, and he knows that he's not being understood, and he's like, okay, well, let's just move on. But like, I don't want to move on. I want to understand you.
And at least he doesn't get frustrated, but we definitely really try. We play like this. We try to decipher his message, because he does replace certain letters with specific. So like the D's and the T's become F's. So and even the sh becomes F. So we're just like,
if he wants to say shark, he'll say fark, or something else that I can't say. So but it's gotten better. Or now he goes shh, arc.
We just have to play like a little game, which is fun for me too, because I like games. But we substitute sh in his F places, and or then if it didn't work, we put the T. If it didn't work, we put the D, until we finally figure out what he said. But hopefully he hasn't moved on by then. by the time we figure it out.
Yeah.
Leon helps a lot. Leon is getting really
He's
good at
like-
understanding his brother.
He's like our translator.
He's totally our translator.
He's our translator. But sometimes he doesn't understand him either. So, but like 90% of the
He's better
time,
than
like
us.
he's way better than we are. Yeah, but he works so hard at everything. And like he hasn't so far had like a typical childhood. It's just been filled with therapies and school and all of those things. So it makes me sad for him sometimes, like, but you know, we'll do whatever we can to help him. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I feel like we've shared quite a bit about our son. Hopefully in the next few videos will be like a little lighter, a little bit easier, kind of, you'll see just more of us in our normal lives. So if you've gotten through this part of our video, thank you so much. I know it's been kind of lengthy, but hopefully you'll be coming along on our next adventure. And yeah.
Watch it at 1.25 times speed. Makes it much better.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks.